So Rika and I are out in the woods today because before I go on my little research trip for a few months, I had a discussion with some people about history. And it came to my attention that a lot of people don't understand the reality of context and perspective when it comes to history. Get through these branches. So one of the most important things that people don't understand about history is, the easiest way to put it is, if I was to take your entire life, everything you did, everything that led you to build the person who you are, every individual conversation that was important, every action, every other person's actions towards you that built who you are, and was to compress it into one paragraph, it wouldn't explain anything. You would get a very general and broad overview of who you are. It wouldn't explain how you are that way, why you are that way, in important context. It's the same with all historical figures. It's the same with all history, is you get a very small snippet of what happened, but you get very little understanding unless you read and dig and understand the time period. What is that thing doing? But yeah, unless you understand the total encompassing amounts of information that bring that whole world that you're looking into perspective, then you're not going to get anything from a textbook. You have to read journals, understand the economics of the time, understand how people lived, how different classes lived. Like if you go and look at the Civil War, a lot of people bring up South Carolina and the Civil War because South Carolina started the Civil War when they seceded from the Union. And that's in the document that's stored in climate-controlled storage in Columbia, South Carolina, and it literally says that they wanted to keep slavery. It's actually not a very long document. It's very short. It's very easy to read. And you can look at that and say, oh, they started it. But you have to really dig into demographics, population, living styles, all that kind of stuff. And you have to realize that in South Carolina at the time, only about 2 to 10% of the population was registered to vote. 60 to 70% of the population were enslaved, and the rest of the people that were left were relatively uneducated. Most of them couldn't read. Most of them got all their information from the rich, wealthy people who could read. And they only told the people what they wanted them to know so they could maintain their power, their slaves, and their lifestyle. Just like anybody throughout history, upper or lower class, has done, they've done things to benefit themselves. So when you're the only people who are dispersing the information, it's very easy for you to manipulate a mass population that is entirely uneducated. So a lot of people say, oh, you know, the population didn't want war. I'm like, yeah, most populations don't want war. Most soldiers who go fight don't want war. The issue is the people in power, as is throughout all of human history, have done what they felt necessary to maintain their power structure and get the goals that they have set for themselves, self-interest, so that they can just sit there and have a good life. So they will manipulate all the way through. So yes, it may be true that the majority of the population just wanted to live their lives as they were living. Right or wrong, self-interest, preservation of your lifestyle is number one priority for everyone. It's just if you've got more power, you can do more damage with that. And perspective is important to understand in there. Is people are like, oh, the people weren't represented. No, they weren't, because the rich people were voting. And people say, oh, the plantation holders manipulated and used to maintain their lifestyle. Yeah, that's what people do, not just rich people. Rich people, powerful people just have more ability to do that. It's life. the people were not educated enough to know that they were being used and manipulated so they could rise up and take down the system, because the system benefited them, because those rich people gave them jobs that made them feel superior over the top of the slaves, or left people alone and had an ability to have towns that had supplies, that so they could live on their own and do their own thing and come into town and get supplies that were only in place because of the rich, wealthy people had such a consumption of resources. It's understanding everything as it is, and that's being human. And here, check this out. But I'm going to go off traveling for a couple of months, and I'll be back.